The government says you can do this, but you have to follow certain requirements. Floodproofing, setbacks, all these kind of things. What we're here to do is to make sure the county enacts an ordinance so if another compressor station goes in or they do additional development out there, that everybody has to follow the same set of rules. Because quite frankly, building a house in the middle of a meadow that's in a floodplain would likely cause a bigger impact to the base flood elevation than a gas well site.
A Marcellus gas well site or a traditional gas well site?
Yes, and I can tell you why. Because the issues with the base flood elevation, and I'm not an engineer and I'm not pretending to be one, but the issues is how much flow is impeded. And so if you had a wooded area, flow is going to be impeded more often, so therefore the base flood elevation is going to rise quicker. If you have a meadow like we were fighting about with Mrs. Huff, flow is normally going to flow faster. So the issue in our case was, what effect did the Marcellus pad? And we were going to put 8 wells in. There was a time it was B12. That's a debate. But let's say we were going to put 8 wells there, and they were going to be filled. There was going to be a certain level. No question. Everybody in this county knows what a Marcellus well site looks like. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. So that's going to impact the base flood elevation by some level. Now, our engineers can fight about what that means, but there's going to be some impact. If you put a house in the middle of that meadow, instead of just a so many feet rise and the well infrastructure, whatever else is there, separators, tanks, whatever you want to put out there, if we put a house out there, that is one big wall right in the middle of the field.
Except for the fact that if you're doing it in accordance with the rules and regulations, if you're going to build a house in a floodplain area, you would follow the rules and regulations that are used on the coast. Where you should have stilts, there's a certain amount of open way where the water can flow. Okay?
Which is what you're saying is if you're building a house, you've got to comply with FEMA regulations, which is what we're saying.
That's exactly what he's saying.
Right.
And the FEMA regulations, if you're building a house, have specific provisions in this ordinance that talk about what you have to do with.
But I have yet to see condensate tanks up on stilts. I have yet to see.
You've seen them floating down the river.
But what I'm saying is this. What I'm saying is this. Build a house, follow the FEMA rules. Drill a well, follow the FEMA rules. That's what we're here saying. But we're saying a lot of the same things, despite the fact you may not want to do it.
So you're gonna put condensate tanks up on stilts?
I didn't say that was the FEMA regulation. You're assuming that's the FEMA regulation.
It says if you're doing development to either secure or leave an open way for waters to flow. Okay? Now I have seen tanks that were full, that were flooded on Flint. I think it was the 85 flood, where the tanks were turned over. And that was just the force of the water. And there was, pretty intense. Yet I'm seeing unsecured pipe along our creekways, and all of a sudden, my concerns are the chemical pollution that will result if some of these things break loose. And my concerns are for my water well, because once our aquifers are polluted.
And with all due respect, I'm not here debating any of those issues with you today. Well, that's something different. What I'm here to do is talk about this, and we're far afield from Kevin's most recent comment.
We're getting away from it.
But I'm not saying you don't have legitimate concerns. What I'm telling you is, if FEMA says something we need to comply with, if we have other concerns we can all agree on, we need to do it. To get an ordinance. Because I think that everyone's in agreement, whether we like it or not, there's going to be an ordinance that's going to provide for some oil and gas development.
Okay, well, Kevin, didn't you say that this is something that FEMA disagreed with?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the issue? We want to follow FEMA's rules. Let's follow them.
Clarification that we're going to
if you wouldn't mind, email me the federal law that this gentleman over here was talking about. I would love to see it, because I look into that stuff. And I'll email the Code 44 regulations, that subpart. I'll just make a copy on it, scan it. I'll send them both to Don Tennant, but I'll send it to Don Tennant. I'll show it to FEMA, see what they say.
And Don can craft revised language on that specific provision, may make that a little more palatable.
Yeah.
And I can help with that.
We'll just go with it.
Next time.
We'll work on it. We will work on that. Let's go to the next one here.
This is number 6, by the way. This is 6.
Yep.
You said 7.
Yep. I was about to skip this one, actually, but I wanted to throw it out there. The floodplain administrator. How can I put this?
The job description?
Yeah, well, the way they pointed. One second, let me get to where she had it. she wants to actually see it, she's going to let it pass. That she actually said, I would prefer that a specified employee of the county. I would too. And I would like to see a state somewhere there about having some training.
Well, let me just cut this.
There were comments.
Let's cut the chase on this, because this is an issue that residents have brought forward. Dan Wellings and I have met on this issue, and what I'm calling the fifth draft does this. It says, it leaves it as it is, the definition of who is eligible to be the floodplain administrator.
Okay.
But it adds, and or a person who has achieved the designation as a certified floodplain manager pursuant to FEMA or state training and testing.
You need to change that around, because getting the certification, to be a certified floodplain
You
manager,
have to be a
you gotta go
floodplain
through
administrator.
You got to go through some training, and that test is very hard. It's through the Association of State Floodplain Managers. It's a nationally accredited association that I don't recommend any floodplain manager got at least 1 year experience taking this exam. To be a certified floodplain manager, you have to take a long 3-hour test, and let me tell you, it was hard on me.
But don't we want our floodplain managers to be so qualified to be able to pass the test?
You got to be. What he's saying is you got to be a floodplain manager before you can be qualified.
You're going to have a hard time finding a floodplain manager if you're requiring a certified floodplain manager. I'd love to see you do it. That'd be great.
No, wait a minute. It says, and or, which means you could either be a licensed engineer, a licensed surveyor, and or a certified floodplain manager by FEMA or state training and testing.
Well, one of our specific comments was just the phrase educated. Is that being deleted? Because the phrase educated, I mean, my wife has 2 master's degrees as a first grade teacher. She's educated, probably more than me, but that doesn't mean she's qualified.
You should actually require, it's a 6 hours mandatory training by the state law every year, and have them attend one of the next available classes as soon as they're appointed. We have 4 classes a year, so they should have it within 3 months, usually of appointment, but there's no state certification. There's state mandatory training out there. But there's no state certified floodplain manager. It's the Association of State Floodplain Managers, and it's a national organization that offers the testing. And like I said, it is very hard. And it's expensive. It's going to cost you $350 just for him to take a test right off the bat. And so passing the test within the first year or so.
So what you're suggesting is, or a person who has done what with the state training? Wait, Mr. Foster, I see you. What are you suggesting? You're suggesting that...
Let me suggest a rewrite to you within a week. Okay. We got some good ideas, and I appreciate you thinking about CFM, but I'm looking out for you and how hard it is to find a CFM without paying a lot of money.
Because really, we have gone from basically a definition that says
a competent adult
resident of the county, which could virtually be anyone other than if you're declared incompetent by the mental hygiene commissioner. So this has evolved to a more, and I do appreciate that you would like to have a county resident be in this position. I do appreciate that. And I don't want to see smaller counties have to go out, for example, and hire someone from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to be your floodplain manager. It doesn't make sense. But we're trying to get a happy balance here, and I thought that each of our persons who are appointed to this position have to go through this class that Dan has gone through.
It's a 6-hour class. I don't know if Dan's actually attended the 6-hour class. He attended the state conference up in Blackwater Falls last year. It's going to come up on this year too. But this is a total different thing to be a CFM. It's called Certified Floodplain Manager. I'm a certified floodplain manager. Richard is a certified floodplain. Is there any other certified floodplain managers in this room?
Uh-oh.
Well, I hear you.
You don't know what you just did to yourself.
There's only 64.
I kind of disagree.
Are you a resident of Dodge County?
No, I'm a resident of Tyler County, and I work in the oil and gas industry myself. And I kind of disagree. I believe the individual that's reviewing these applications for these permits, they need to know what they're reviewing. They need to be qualified I agree with the surveyor, I agree with the engineer, but I think that they need to be a certified floodplain manager. At least that is a qualification, but they, each individual, the public would recognize, the industry can recognize, and that's my feelings on that, because there is a lot of, on these applications, you guys, under this new ordinance, is going to require heck grass studies, it's going to require, a lot of things that's going to take a qualified individual to understand. And be honest with you, I've been through the certified floodplain management test. A lot of this stuff that's in these applications, even a certified floodplain manager may not necessarily know how to interpret the data. So, I think you guys are going down the wrong path if you don't have someone that's qualified to review these applications. We all know surveyors. There's not that many surveyors in this state. There's not that many engineers that's certified that are willing to do this kind of work.
Not for the money they're making.
No.
So
I respect your thoughts, and that sounds great. It really does. Dan, are you certified?
No, not yet.
but he's a surveyor, so.
I am a surveyor, and I am familiar with a lot of things.
Yes, he is.
And just as you said, they take a year for you to get the knowledge to pass that CFM. I don't think anybody that doesn't have that knowledge can handle this position at this time in this county.
And I'll stand up in that regard. I mean, everyone needs to understand. We went through this case where if you don't have someone that's qualified, literally there's a stack of documents yay big, and it's difficult. It's difficult to read those documents, and frankly, I mean, to be not to diminish Kevin in any way, shape, or form. When I cross-examined Kevin, I asked him, "Could you read these darn things?" And he said, "No, I had to send them to FEMA." So, and I know Kevin's getting more educated every day, and he's certified floodplain manager. But if you don't have someone that's qualified, then and that's why we were concerned about having cost-shifting language in the ordinance, because technically what we had to do to understand whether Dan and I could read these darn things, we had to consult with an outside expert. So we had to go out and hire a person to read these things with us and consult to make sure that we were reading them correctly and understanding them, so Dan could make a decision appropriately or advise the commission during the process. So really, I don't want to be so restrictive that we can't get a person or it's going to cost the county too much money.
That's my word.
And I do appreciate that. But again, I said in the litigation all along that the equivalent analogy here is that the counties have been playing t-ball for the last 100 years, and all of a sudden we went to the World Series.
Major League.
The draft proposal, that's one of my specific comments, doesn't fix that problem because it just says educated. And with all due respect to Mr. Sandor, if Mr. Welling says no more, then Mr. Sandor is a floodplain administrator, and I'm assuming you don't want to take that role.
I'll take it.
Decisions would be made a lot quicker.
I thought Dan was water and goes to Hawaii.
Mr. Chairman, may I address this?
Yes, go ahead.
Party. They are a very valuable resource out there that you could use, a USDA NRCS employee. They are familiar with floodplains. They can survey. They are familiar with wetlands regulations. Right now, the NRCS of USDA is in the process of buying out a whole valley down in Fayette County to get it to all residents, to get it out of the floodplain. And those people are retiring at an early age, and they would be more than capable of being a floodplain manager.
Well, the only thing I would say on a practical matter, Mr. Foster, is, and Dan can attest to this, that this is a job where you have to be here every day almost in Doddridge County. I mean, something pops up every day now, given the game changer of oil and gas development. And having someone 3 counties away,
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that they are NRCS, USDA NRCS employees that are retiring at an early age, looking for a second career, and they are available in the surrounding areas. They can move into the county. We may have a couple that live in the county. I know Tyler County just has a district conservationist that retired, and he's capable of doing everything that is required by the floodplain coordinator.
yeah. I just don't know. I don't want to limit the county's opportunity to have someone here on the job every day that's able to come into the courthouse and pick up documents, review documents. And the process that's contemplated under this new ordinance, the proposed ordinance, is literally, it's a full-time job, to do what's going to be necessary.
Tammy?
Okay, I have a problem with this description, and I know that you're aware of it, Dan's aware of it. You limit yourself to engineers and licensed surveyors, and now the floodplain, a person who's certified. There's also another education that you're not thinking about, and that's the environmental science education. My daughter has a 5-year degree from Shepherd University with a background in water resources. She did the mapping, she did the ARC, she did the floodplain, she did the all the endangered species. And she would qualify, but she wouldn't qualify under this.
Okay, I appreciate that. I was unaware of that, and that's a suggestion that may well be worth investigating.
I just see that you're limiting yourself.
Kind of falls in line with more specific comment. We're not necessarily opposed to other people may be qualified, but you can't just say educated.
Well,
And you can't limit. The other part of my comment is that by saying surveyors and engineers, this county commission's going to have to pay for that forever.
well,
Now, that is steep.
the county commission is currently paying the floodplain manager's position at a certain rate, and I anticipate that rate will remain the same, hopefully, to fill that position. So whether they're a licensed engineer, or a licensed surveyor, or a licensed environmentalist.
But if they're not licensed, I don't think there is such thing as a licensed environmentalist.
The one suggestion, and I had commented on this, I don't understand in the full-blown FEMA floodplain ordinance, the 545-page document, they have a relatively good description for the job, pretty much. And the one thing, we keep saying the word administrator. Well, if you're an administrator, you pull other people in when you're not familiar with something. So that the suggestion that Mr. Foster was making, there are other agencies that if there's a question about something, you can bring in an expert to advise. And in the process of doing that, whoever is the administrator will be learning. But the job description in that full-blown FEMA thing, it was pretty much 2 pages, and it made sense. It described stuff, it wasn't overly limited, it had certain requirements or certain skills. My issue when I first saw the first description, the competent adult, it didn't even say anything about reading maps. I mean, I have an environmental degree. I can do stuff, but even in what my qualifications are, I wouldn't qualify with the way the description is written. And I think there are people in this room that might consider me competent at what I used to do. And really, it's paperwork that someone has to learn. But like I said, they can pull in other resources if there is a question. So an engineer, a certified engineer, is certainly not going to go through the education that they go through unless they're retired or want to do something to fill in some time for $36,000 a year.
Well, I agree with you that that's an issue. But
Well, can we just, what we do, can I make a suggestion that anybody that wants to make a suggested comment on that, submit it to Dan Wellings or Mr. Tennant, by next week. Well, and if he hasn't, then maybe Don, that could be one where we can, tell everybody what's going to be the next reading if people don't like
We'll
it.
take these things and you talk.
I think Jim, that was one I'd never thought of, but obviously there are other professions and all there who, could do this and all there, so. I don't think we need to get too restrictive. I agree.
FEMA was actually okay with that. I was just suggesting putting something in there about achieving some training within the first year of employment.
Well, that's what I was searching for,
I had
but I didn't
suggested
realize that the certified floodplain manager
It's
training and testing was so significant.
How about something like just with equivalent relevant skills?
That sounds good.
And
But
education.
the thing with the training, I read about that also. I think some of the national training is given in Maryland or Virginia. And I thought that was really, really good because it gives the opportunity for a person that has the job here in this county or in this state to network with other people across the country.
Well,
Can I tell you what?
here's
Find
the-
somebody, send them, we'll pay for it.
Well, here's the only issue with this, okay? And I appreciate your comment. However, we're going to be talking about a time frame that's, somewhere in the neighborhood of 90 days. And I know for myself, I'm a sole practitioner for a reason, because I don't want to have to rely on other people. I want to do the job and get it done. And if you're suggesting that we're going to call other people around the state to come in, then you're relying upon their schedule, and you're hoping they're going to come in and do it for free. I mean, usually when you call in experts in this type of thing, experts cost money. And my concern was that it would cost the county too much money to always be out there, bringing in experts from other areas when you should have the experts sitting in your position.
Isn't that what you are, Mr. Tennant?
The permit fees being what they were, help pay for that.
Well, even at $1,000, and even at $1,000 will pay for it. But let me echo something that what Dawn's talking about. And there was dispute in our case with Mrs. Huff, the permit, and there may be dispute for everybody in this room to floodplain permit application for drilling on your property. Not every floodplain permit application is going to have a contest or an objection. So there's really no reason. I mean, in this particular county, Dan does have some technical experience. He's a surveyor. He should be able to say, we'll use EQT's example. EQT, they provided their floodplain study, they provided their certification, stamped it. There's no objection. Looks good on paper to me, you can stamp it. There wouldn't be any, that was my initial earlier general comment. There's no reason they go hire an expert or for Dan to say, well, I just don't believe EQT, so I'm going to look behind their documents. If we have rubber stamped with an engineer, there's really no reason to do that. But there are going to be times where there are contests where someone else may have an engineer that says the exact opposite. And then that makes sense. I mean, these engineers, they put their license on the line when they stamp it. And then they're certifying it. That's like when I sign a document and file it forward, I'm representing that that's what I'm saying. So they have obligations on that. And we can dispute what happened in our other case and move forward. But, Dan, if he's the floodplain administrator, when this is all said and done, he may say I want out. He may say it before it's all said and done. I don't know. He's still here tonight.
Don't go nowhere, Dan.
Yeah. But he could just say, they comply. The same could be, that's just for us. The same could be with you guys. I want to build a garage. I want to build a barn. I don't need a floodplain study. It looks okay. It's a barn next to our house. It's not going to make any more impact. Just rubber stamp it. I mean, I'm not going to run around the county and watch you guys, what you're building as your house and come object to it. So most likely there's not going to be objections for the residents of the surface area. It's going to come into play when we drill a well.
Mr. Hastings,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
certainly hope that whoever's reviewing these documents is not just taking the rubber stamp from whatever agency is coming forth. I certainly hope whoever is doing this job will be reviewing the documents.
Well, but and what you're suggesting then, really ultimately, which is just not practical, is that the county, the applicant doesn't need an engineering study. The county just does one for every application. It
No.
should do a floodplain study to make sure it's done right. I mean, that's the ultimate suggestion, which is absurd. I mean, the county's not going to do that. It doesn't make sense to.
That's not what I was...
No, but I mean, that's the end result of that theory. But I mean, I think we're in agreement again. Move on.
You hope that they all do their job, but they don't.
Well, that's just reality.
That sucks.
That's reality, yeah.
Kevin, what is the minimum that you would suggest from state training standpoint?
That they would attend, how about a 273 class, which is the managing floodplain through the National Flood Insurance Program. It could be either A, at Emmitsburg, Maryland. State would pay for their lodging and their food and their travel. If they use their own vehicle, would pay the mileage up to $200, right, Richard? I think that's what it was.
So it's the NFIP class what?
It's 273, Managing Floodplain Development through the National Flood Insurance Program.
It's free.
Require that they attend that within a year, because there's usually a total of 3 classes in every year.
Hey, Kevin, what's it, as far as qualifications, what's it take to sit for that exam? I mean, you don't really have to have a particular education as far as.
No, anybody,
No,
anybody
can
can
take
apply and sit through the exam. But
Exactly.
Yeah, but they have to be able to pass
Once
it.
you become certified, you have to keep.
you have to keep taking, you have to have a total of 18 hours in 2 years of continuing education credits.
So that'd be a guarantee to the public and to whoever is involved that they're going to be taking those hours every 2 years or have continual training, just like any other profession on the surveying end of things, the engineering end of things. You know, we're professionals. We have to take so many hours every year. Ethics, you know, whatever, minimum standards. I would think that'd be the process that we'd want to take, but you know, with someone's reviewing these.
Or so basically you'd say, or completion of the NFIP class 273, managing floodplain development and stay current on continuing training. Something like that.
I'll actually send you the curriculum and everything if you want to check it out.
Is there a test with that?
Yes.
Shouldn't you have to be able
There is
to
a
pass
test
the
at the end
test
of the course.
besides just that?
There is a test at the end of the
Do you
course.
get an official certification?
You get an official, you get a certificate saying you attended the class. Yes.
Okay. Do you have the right then after that to put any initials behind your name?
No.
Okay. Okay, because CFM, they put that on, I've seen that.
Yeah, I got
So
it.
you're not really certified, you've received a certificate of completion.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Which is
thank
a
you.
week-long class, and it's very good.
Better
class.
than nothing.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the last one. Leo.
Number 7.
The last one I got here is section 7.6, which is on page 39. It's a simple one. I don't foresee any problems with it. Y'all.
How long have you been standing up there?
Start of construction allows 18 months to complete the project. FEMA has always preferred a tighter 12 month, and if they need to, with an option to extend. So I mean, they have no problem you putting an option to extend. And the reason for that 12-month break, maps come out every year. New maps come out every year. Letter map amendments, changes that's happened throughout the year in those areas from engineer studies or map modernization process that's going on every year. So they're basically just saying, if somebody isn't finished with the project after 1 year, file for an extension. That's it.
So it's in A, you're saying to change 18 months to 12 months.
Correct.
I mean, I don't really understand why whoever drafted the FEMA ordinance put questions in there. I mean, it didn't really make sense to me. It's just another one of those stylistic things. You know, really questions shouldn't be there. It should be, you know.
I think, I don't have.
Well, it's also in the middle of the paragraph too, completed with 18 months.
Right, it's up in, it's in 2 places.
Oh, I see, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So it's just changing that from 18 to 12 and giving them the opportunity for, you know, extensions.
You're changing that to 12?
2 questions about that. One, generally, what does completion contemplate? Obviously, in our industry,
One hole on the pad or 10 holes on the
Are you
pad?
done and got all your equipment out of there?
okay, that's fine if that's what we're saying. The only thing I would want to make sure is the ordinance set forth is that if extensions are not going to be under and withheld, which I think we have language in there, because I could promise you be a big ball suit, is if we've got 2 of our 6 wells done, and then the county commission says, no, we're not going to extend your 12 months, we're going to make you go through the process again. That's not reasonable. There just needs to be some assurance that, assuming there's nothing changed with respect to base flood elevation or whatever it would be, that there's going to be an extension.
Right, I would see.
Yeah, as long as that's, I don't think they have a problem with that.
Well, I think language such as the extension shall not be unreasonably denied.
I think it's in there now. I thought it was. It's in there. So I just want to make sure that was stated clearly on our position on that.
See no reason.
Mr. Sneed, I had a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, somebody.
Back at the beginning, when we were discussing the definition of development, and you said we needed to go by FEMA's prescribed
Yeah.
wording. Does FEMA have same thing on page 12, number 43? Is there a FEMA definition for structure?
Yes.
So I assume this was.
I'm not even going to look at the ordinance, I'm just going to read off of FEMA's definition for structure. If I can find it.
Page 12.
No, he's going to pull it.
I'm
up.
looking from the code. of
It is on page 12, number 43.
Structure.
It won't be on page 12 in that book.
No. Structure means, for floodplain management purposes, a walled and roofed building including a gas or liquid storage tank that is principally above ground, as well as manufactured homes. Structure for insurance purposes mean a building with 2 or more outside rigid walls and fully secured roof that is affixed to a permanent site. We don't have all that in our definition, I'm pretty sure. I believe it's just a walled and roofed building, right?
Right.
There's no sense.
Right, including a gas or liquid storage tank that's used primarily for
Principally.
services to the walled and roofed building, is what they have here. I guess where I'm coming from, sir, is, and I know this gentleman over here feels like I pick on him all the time, but
It's not just me she picks on, so.
that's true. In the case of a well pad, you have storage tanks and heater,
Dryers.
and they're not attached to a walled building. So can we include storage tanks that are not attached to a walled building as part of the structure?
Why not just use the federal definition?
Yeah, how did
This
yours
is
go
the federal
again?
definition, isn't it?
How
It's
did
not
yours-
exact.
No, there's a difference.
Yours didn't seem to imply it would have to be attached to it.
Because the definition
Let's just
43 here would be like a propane tank that's attached to a house for heating purposes.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
It doesn't
there
really,
was an addition as a result of a comment we made. I'll take credit for it again. I mean, you're going to see it when you see the documents. Because when I look at that, it does contemplate like a house and tanks for houses. I mean, the other stuff that you're talking about, a tank, a brine tank, or condensate tank, or something out in the field, they're covered by other sections of this and definitions. So when you talk about a walled or roof house building, a storage tank for brine water, which is not gas or oil, it wouldn't fall in, I don't think it would fall in that category. So I mean, even if you take it out, I still don't think the stuff on a Marcellus well site falls underneath that definition.
Well,
But-
that's their
I'm not saying it's
structure.
not I'm not saying the stuff's not regulated. I'm saying it doesn't fall underneath the definition of a
you had-
structure.
I think the definition is right there with I don't see no changes that would affect it at all. I mean, really, if I read it verbatim, for floodplain management purposes, a walled and roofed building including a gas or liquid storage tank that is principally above ground, as well as a manufactured home, period.
Okay, so what they have here in our is not what you have out of your book.
A walled and roofed building, what words are we missing here? What ones did we change, Dan? I didn't see anything.
What's in our ordinance, it says the gas tank has to be attached to a walled or roofed building.
you didn't think we'd be so picky. did you?
I do apologize, but not really.
Wait till I go next.
That's okay.
You got to partake of it.
That's
We'll bring a
okay.
roll of duct tape for you next time.
I submit to you that you probably agree with more of my stuff.
Including the gas or liquid storage.
Well, maybe
That's-
speak in plainer English
That's
then.
just really sad. Telling me when this is all over, we're gonna.
Why don't we just use the federal guidelines?
I'll let it her.
Why do we have to rewalk Friday?
You guys might like it, so that's why they sent me in on her. Please call me.
Mr. Tennant, is there a reason that you changed the wording whenever there's already a definition?
Yeah, why can't we just go with what FEMA has?
Because they took his explanation
Yeah, I don't understand what's the beef with what's in the document right now? I mean, what is the
That it
issue?
has
It
to be
has to be
attached to a
attached.
It has to be
building.
attached to a building. And that's not what the FEMA book says.
And the FEMA's already got it written. We're supposed to be going by it anyway. Why are we not just using FEMA?
Because FEMA says you can be more restrictive.
Well, there's nothing more
But
restrictive.
your definition isn't more restrictive.
This says a storage tank out in the middle of the meadow is not a structure unless it's attached to a walled building.
Yeah, what I would need to do, in all honesty, is to go back and read the ordinance to understand where the word structure is utilized that would implicate the lack of the definition. To see what relevance it has on any of the other provisions. Because right now I'm not clicking on where structure is contained in the ordinance that would make it, that would rise to an issue that's important. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, her part is that
Structure is used where buildings are put.
Utilization of the floodway, they make reference to
How do you
structure.
search it?
got here to file.
It's just a definition that would apply wherever structure is written in it. So we're just trying to get the definition right.
Yeah, the specific question they have,
Here's
as
the
opposed
notes.
to us, the tank is attached to a Marcellus well site, is structure as opposed to.
We fine?
Oh, no, you don't
That's
want
home, things like that. We believe the definition as the federal definition, as long as understanding what that really means.
No. Seems like this is more restrictive than federal definition.
Right.
Mr. Hastings, did you say you think brine tanks are covered elsewhere in the ordinance?
I think that other items placed in the floodway would be potentially subject to various provisions of the ordinance with what you have to do to it. It's not defined, it's not a definition, but I think there are things in the ordinance that talk about what you have to do.
That's the question, is a freestanding brine tank covered by the ordinance? We think it should be. You don't disagree?